Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 291, cover dated August 1992. So this cover here is by Tom Raney and inked by Harps. Don't know who Harps is. Pretty interesting cover. We don't have any caption here informing us what's going on or who these characters are, but it turns out that they're Morlocks. And Storm here is trying to escape them. I love the use of magenta, always like magenta on covers, it's very eye-catching. So Tom Raney is also the guest penciler on the inside of the issue, and let's open up the comic to our first page, and we have an anchor image here of Colossus, and this damsel in distress turns out to be Callisto. And here's our creative team. The title of the story is Underbelly. Scott Lobdell, writer; Tom Raney, guest pencils; Hilary Barta, guest inks; Lois Buhalis, letters; and Joe Rosas, colorist. So I like Raney's art in this issue. He's got a very good command of anatomy, and he's picking out some interesting anchor images throughout the issue. So I'll comment a little bit more on those as we get to them. So we've got a double page half spread here inside the X Mansion with the gold team scrambling, and Storm asks Colossus, "Peter, who is this woman?" And Colossus replies, "Of course you do not recognize her, for none of you met her after she became a victim of the Skin Shaper mask. The woman, Storm, is Callisto." So a couple of things to note here. We've got a fairly non-knowledgeable editorial note here. We don't remember exactly when, but trust us, it happened. It happened in Uncanny X-Men number 259, video of which is here on the channel. And also, Colossus is wrong here, or he doesn't remember, because that was the time when he emerged from the Siege Perilous as Peter Nicholas, and he does not remember that Jean Grey knew who Callisto was, and together with Forge made a decision in Uncanny X-Men 264 to let Colossus and Callisto have their happy ending. So it's ironic what he says here, that none of them met her after she became a victim of mask. Jean did. And this issue is interesting because Lobdell goes back to some earlier business from Uncanny X-Men and X-Factor throughout this issue. So obviously had been doing a bit of research after he started scripting the X-Books after John Byrne quit suddenly. So he's had some time to do his homework now. Also, Lee and Portacio are gone, and so Lobdell is free to do what he wants from now on. So Professor X, by invitation of Callisto, uses his telepathy in order to find out what's going on, because Callisto's pretty badly beaten up. And outside the X Mansion, there also turns out to be the Morlock healer. So then the scene switches to Mikhail in his bedroom in the X Mansion, and he is haunted by the ghosts of the men and women he killed the first time he closed the portal in the other dimensional world that he spent years marooned in, and he's here mocked by the High Avatar, who blames him for killing all these men and women. And Mikhail says, he did his best, and may he forgive me. I did my best. So I'm not sure who he's referring to there. Is he referring to God? Is he referring to his brother Peter? And then we check down several floors below in the underground complex beneath the X Mansion. And we've got the gold team gathered all in uniform for Professor X to use his telepathy to enter into Callisto's mind and find out in the quickest fashion possible what happened to her. So let's see what that is. And I always like this in the X books, this way of delineating and representing the astral sphere. And this is a style that goes all the way back to Neil Adams. Neil Adams is the inventor of this style of delineation. It was picked up by John Byrne as well in his run on the X-Men, but it goes all the way back to Adams. Always liked it. And so we see Callisto entering into her apartment after it seems like a night on the town. And the Morlock healer is there asking her to come back as leader of the Morlocks. This after the death of Mask in X-Force number 9. And Callisto is not interested. You've confused me with my former self, old man, she says to the healer. Those pathetic monstrosities are no longer my concern. So she is enjoying her life as one of the most beautiful women in the world. That storyline going all the way back to 359. And she's attacked by the Morlocks, who look to make her ugly again. In order to lead ugly, this one says. So, of course, Callisto has martial arts training, and she uses her training to best those particular Morlocks. And the next thing is she makes her way with the healer in tow to the X-Mansion. So, Professor X is determined that the X-Men take the initiative to break this cycle of violence in order that we might save the Morlocks from themselves, as he says. And who turns out to have been in on the astral loop, so to speak, except Mikhail, which is a surprise to everyone, because he shouldn't have been part of the sonic loop, as Jean says to the Professor. Professor X says, I don't know, there's much about Mikhail that remains a mystery. So Professor X clearly isn't aware of Mikhail's hallucinations or what he did to that pizza boy in Uncanny X-Men 290. And here we have, they're leaving the medical care center, and we've got this conspiratorial look between Mikhail and Callisto. Mikhail is taking Callisto's side in things. So outside we've got this interesting moment here where Aurora thinks that Professor X should butt out, that there's nothing to discuss. As a leader of the Morlocks, this is my responsibility and mine alone. So this is something that goes all the way back to Uncanny X-Men 180 and 181, when Storm won the right to be leader of the Morlocks by besting Callisto in single combat. And this is an interesting pickup on old continuity from X-Factor, where Warren is disgusted and says, I'm the direct result of your leadership over those people. As a member of X-Factor, I lost my original wings, coming to the defense of the Morlocks. So back in X-Factor number 10, and that goes back to the Mutant Massacre crossover series back in 1986. And here in the background, we have back in the medical center, the Morlock healer coming off his slab. And what's he up to? Well, it turns out he's got plans for Callisto, and he is using his powers on her. So is he going to heal her, or what's going to be the result of that? But back here, Warren is pretty determined that the X-Men themselves, all of them are guilty of not giving the Morlocks the attention they deserve. And he's saying this as someone who has had his physical appearance changed by Apocalypse. And so he feels some empathy for the Morlocks, who are the ugly variety of mutants that do not pass in civilized society. So just as he feels he is something of a monster now with what Apocalypse did to him, he's feeling empathy with them. We're living in a mansion, he says, while these horribly mutilated people are scavenging beneath the streets of New York City. And Storm's response is interesting. She says, that is of their own choosing. So, but is it, given how they look? Are they not down there because of the prejudice of the people above ground? But Professor X twigs there's something going on back in the med lab, so he tells the X-Men to get back to the lab ASAP. And what do they discover? Except that Callisto is back to her unprepossessing self. And she reveals that the Morlock healer was trying to heal her, but all he managed to do was return my body to its original state. So undoing what Mask did to her, and Mask is dead now, and she's pretty annoyed, and she is determined to get back at the Morlocks and make them regret what they've done to her. And then we get this interesting interlude here in a nursing home in Virginia, where this mysterious figure enters and uses a type of coded language with the night nurse that he was referred to the Institute by a mutual friend of ours. And she says, "I have no friends, mutual or otherwise," she was about to say. And then she twigs, "Oh, you mean friend with a capital F." And so she leads him to the padded cell of this particular tied up person. And our mystery figure here says, "Up close, he doesn't much look like humanity's last hope. Does he, nurse?" "No, sir," she responds, "not much. I suppose that's where the faith comes in." So who are these people? Who is this mysterious figure? It will be revealed in future issues, but I'll spoil it anyway just now that this is Stephen Lang, the original creator of the Sentinels, and this is setting up a story that will pay off some years down the road with the Phalanx Covenant. So stay tuned for more developments on this little mysterious interlude. And then we go to Times Square, Manhattan, but the action is happening below Times Square in the Morlock tunnels. And we have Jean wondering here about the wisdom of Professor X coming along on the mission. And she thinks to herself, before his spine was shattered back in Uncanny X-Men 280, the Professor seldom joined us on a mission. Is this his way of coping by overcompensating? And then Bishop sees the danger radiation sign on the tunnel, which he recognizes and has seen before. The footnote here is wrong. It was in Uncanny X-Men 287. And that's when he stumbled upon the recording of Jean Grey concerning the mystery of the X-Trader, but he doesn't refer to that here or reveal it to any of the X-Men. And Storm merely explains it's one of many posted throughout these tunnels meant to discourage the curious. So let's continue and see what they happen upon. And they happen upon what appears to be a pile of dead Morlocks, a big pile of bodies of dead Morlocks. But Jean isn't picking up any psychic residue from any of them, so it turns out to be a hologram. Now, just to note here, great anchor images on these 2 pages by Tom Raney. Really nice artwork here. This one's a bit busy, but I like it. And then they step through the hologram, and what do they find on the other side? Well, we get a double page spread here. Again, when I first saw this issue way back in 1992, I really enjoyed Raney's art, and this one's pretty dynamic. But also, in fairness, I would be a little bit critical because we have to look to the dialogue to see properly what's happening here. That the Morlocks, we can just see it in the corner here. The Morlocks are killing each other, and Professor X has determined that there's some Morlock who is psychologically damage that is causing this, and he is determined that they stop the slaughter with by using every peaceful alternative. So then we flip back to the X Mansion, where Callisto is tied down and Iceman has stayed behind. But who interrupts his short dialogue with Callisto except for Mikhail, who is, well, what's he about to do? Earlier we learned that he's on Callisto's side, so surely he's going to endeavor to release her from the restraints. And then we flip back to the Morlock tunnels, and Storm finally decides to use her authority as a once upon a time Morlock leader to end the slaughter. Now again, I think Raney could have done this a bit better, could have been showing more of the Morlocks battling each other here. The backgrounds are a bit empty here. I do think maybe he was getting a bit rushed towards the end of this issue. And so Storm wades into the midst of the Morlocks, who stop fighting each other. They recognize her, and then they crowd around her, looking to touch her in order to be healed. Now this triggers her claustrophobia, and she panics, and they wrap around her. She is absolutely terrified here. As Bishop says, these creatures are caught in a feeding frenzy, and so she blasts her way out of the Morlock tunnels up into the fresh air using her powers. And this, of course, lets the Morlocks loose in Midtown Manhattan. So as the caption for the next issue declares, Iceman battles Mikhail, Professor X in action, and of course the Morlocks take Manhattan. So I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 291. Just one last brief observation. I've made this observation in one other video. I love these t-shirts. If I could get my hands on these, I would be getting these t-shirts ready for the summer coming. Yes, I hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Uncanny X-Men 291. If you did, please like the video, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.